How do companies create a culture and core values that employees actually live out? The team at The Receptionist, a bootstrapped Denver-based software company, sets out to answer that very question. Welcome to the Fabric Podcast. Here's your host, Michael Ashford.
We've covered the topic of employee supremacy versus shareholder supremacy quite a bit here on the Fabric Podcast, from the vantage point of our CEO, Andy Alsop. And while Andy's perspective is important and will continue to explore how companies operate under an employee supremacy model, we also need to hear from other voices, the employees. So in this episode, I chat with Rain from our customer experience team. It was actually Rain's idea to come on the show to provide their take on employee supremacy, how it fuels the desire to provide radical support for our customers, and how it compares to other customer support interactions when it's clear a shareholder supremacy mindset is at work. Well, for those who don't know, Rain is new to the show. If this is your first episode, Rain, you've never been on this show before.
No.
You've never been on the podcast, but you've been a member of the team here at The Receptionist for how long has it been now?
A little over a year and some change.
A year, my goodness. Okay. This is fantastic because for the customers of The Receptionist, they probably know you. They may not have heard your voice, not always, but we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But Rain is a customer experience representative here with The Receptionist, and we're going to talk about employee supremacy today and how it affects your role and some of the things that you see out there and just some of your background and history in dealing with maybe the other side of, of the coin here, so to speak. So Rain, first, let's dive right in here. I would love to hear from you, and this is something we discussed at our all hands meeting recently, but employee supremacy as a member of the frontline team, you're talking with customers, you're dealing with perhaps unhappy customers from time to time. Not that we have those. No. How do you define it? How do you experience employee supremacy? Let's begin there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's part of the reason that I really wanted to, hop on the podcast. I've been re-listening to the Employee Supremacy series with Andy, and he's wonderful and he's very eloquent, but also I think it's really important that, we talk about, what it looks like when you're not the CEO. Like, What does it look like, when you're on the ground? And I think a big part of it for me is having the freedom to really enjoy the process of customer experience. And what I mean by that specifically is, at other places I've worked at, it's all about very particular metrics, It's you got to answer every chat within 30 seconds. You got to close every chat within 3 minutes. If you get a phone call, that has time limits. And, you're really prioritizing quantity over quality and sometimes speed over coherence. I've definitely worked at places where that was the experience. And a really interesting thing that happened, when I started here, one of the first things that Tom and Hannah, really tried to drill into me when I started was we don't do that here. Mm-hmm. We value you not as a machine that can spit out rote answers and memorize everything as much as possible. We value you as a person with really unique opinions and really unique ways to problem solve. So this focus on, we'd much rather you take 4 minutes to give a really good answer than 45 seconds to give a mediocre one. We'd much rather you step away and take a break if you need one, so that, you're doing your best. We much rather you tell the client, hey, I don't have that answer for you. I'm going to have to check with my team. Or, hey, I don't have that answer for you. It's going to take me some time to get it. Then, try and make something up just to, get the chat closed on time. So for me, I think in terms of how I communicate with clients, especially, employee supremacy is not having to be afraid of not being fast enough or, not having made up the right answer. It's knowing that I am, encouraged to be a person and not just a machine.
So let's go deeper into that, Rain, because in a shareholder supremacy model or shareholder supremacy world, and those previous experiences that you've had, I don't want to get too woo-woo with this, but how does that make a person feel? And let's look at it from both your experience as the person giving the guidance or the direction to a customer, and then what kind of feedback do you get from those customers who are in that scenario?
Absolutely.
How does that make the person feel?
Okay, actually, well, the reason that this was sort of top of mind when I initially suggested, when I was like, hey, I want to be on the podcast, is that I recently had an experience as, sort of the customer, the client, with in a shareholder supremacy company. I had ordered something online, and it had come to me and it had been damaged a little. It wasn't a huge deal. I wasn't angry or anything. Mistakes happen, but I did have to, log onto their website and live chat with a person to see, what I could do about getting a refund or an exchange or something. And my issue was solved very quickly, but it was a very icky experience because
why?
I could tell that the rep I was talking to was just terrified of me. Just very, very like answers so quick that there was like no substance to them. Constant apologizing and checking in, oh, I hope you're having a good experience. I hope this is a positive experience for you. And I was like, well, it's not, but it's not because you're not being fast enough. It's because I feel like your manager is standing behind you with a baseball bat. Blink twice if you need help.
Yeah, right.
But, and I think that, I've definitely in other situations where I've been that rep in a shareholder supremacy context. I remember a very specific experience in a customer service, area at a previous job where we quite literally got feedback from our CEO that one of our shareholders felt that we were not, being efficient enough and that was costing them money. And so they were like, well, you got to be faster. And it's not a good feeling as a rep because you're scared and you're anxious and that these people who are supposed to have your back just think of you as a number.
Yeah.
That they're going to do whatever they can do to squeeze a little extra money out of you. That they are going to, give you insane metrics so you can't reach them so that you're not getting your full, commission or whatever. You know that you're at risk at the hands of like people who are ostensibly supposed to be like looking out for you. So it creates a horrible experience for the reps, which then translates to a horrible experience to the people we're talking to.
As you experienced.
Yeah, no, I felt horrible. I felt really bad for having written into this live chat. And I don't want anyone to feel like, oh man, I don't want to write to the receptionist because I'm going to be putting those poor reps through something. I love CX. I'm a classical extrovert. I love talking to people and solving problems.
Yeah.
I want people to come to us if they have something to say. I never want to like leave a client walking away from a conversation feeling like, they did something wrong or like it was a bad experience for either of us.
And that you were almost trying to push them out the door as quickly as possible, whether their problem was solved or not. Just like, get off my plate.
Yeah, get off my plate so that I can, deal with the 500 other people who are on the plates that are coming down.
Yeah. Or so the numbers look good.
Yeah.
So, okay, I closed that ticket in 30 seconds instead of, like you said, 4 minutes. Which, I mean, at the end of the day, the point should be, is the problem solved?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I honestly had two very similar experiences to you, Rain. One is a very large company. We'll say, we could get meta with this conversation. Hint, hint. But I had an experience with them in some of our advertising that we do here at The Receptionist, and I'm the director of marketing, so we do that. And it was the same thing, Rain. It was I was experiencing an issue with our account, and I live chatted the support because live chat is the only way you can get a hold of anyone. And the response was not that my issue was getting solved, but that, hey, here's an answer for you. Go take a look. Can I close out this account now? Or can I close out this chat now? Are you done? Are you finished? Did you get your answer? It just felt like I was being swept over to the side.
Exactly.
Constantly from the minute I began the interaction.
Yeah. And then you don't feel valued, and you also don't feel like the person you're talking to is being valued.
Yeah.
And that's, I believe very much that the people we talk to, like most of our clients are wonderful, kind.
Right.
And I feel very strongly that they would, be able to tell and react poorly if we were, either pushing them out the door, either because we just want them off our plate or because, we're scared of not hitting metrics.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be a pleasant experience for them.
Now, I want to put this in context for everyone. we employ things like that you've heard on this podcast before, perhaps the turtle police. We ask people to slow down before they give an answer or even respond to a chat. We do go the extra mile and say, hey, we don't have this answer for you. We're going to find out for you and we'll get back to you. Can we have your information? Before I ask you this question, Rain, I want to make a point to everybody listening or watching. We have one of the highest NPS scores that I've ever seen a company have. If you put it against the metrics of what they say world class is, the receptionist we're up there.
Universe class.
Go look at our customer reviews on the review sites like G2 and Capterra. They consistently talk about the customer service that they get from the receptionist. It is a constant there. And we've talked about radical support here and just how we go above and beyond to make sure that our customers are supported. So the proof is there that this stuff works. Now, I want to ask you, Rain, how does it affect you? Customer experience can be a thankless job. It can be you used the word rote earlier, that it can be kind of this grind, this slog of just getting through people and their issues. But at the end of the day, at the end of each day, how do you feel about the work that you've come in and done in a model where we encourage you to be your true, full, authentic self in your role?
To live fabric.
To live fabric.
It's, like I said, I love CX. I love the idea of, talking to people every day. And obviously, there's no job where you don't sometimes have days where like, oh, that was a slog. But overwhelmingly, it feels really good. I think the fact that I let myself be a person and that we all let ourselves be a person, you can tell if you're talking to Hannah or Linda or me based on, the tone of the conversation, how many GIFs are we using, who's using emojis. The fact that I'm engaging with these people as a human being enables them to engage back as a human being. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize, but that, if you are putting out, like I said, rote machine answers, that's what you're going to get back. When I'm engaging with people as a human being, they engage back in the same way. And people are overwhelmingly really kind. The vast majority of people I talk to are very patient. The vast majority of people I talk to are very appreciative, even complimentary a lot. You mentioned that we get, really great reviews and all that. And the same thing, CX gets personal reviews, but also, even outside of that, that was great. Thank you so much. But also more specifically, this was one of the best customer experiences I've ever had. And that is all really validating to me. And in the sense that I know that I am supported both, by my direct team, by Hannah and Lizanne, Raven, but also, the company at large. It never, even when it is sort of a day where it's oh, that particular conversation was kind of a slog, there's never a sense that I feel overwhelmed or cornered or trapped, because I know that I can take a break if I need to. But at the end of most days, I feel really, really good. I feel like I helped a lot of people. I feel like people were very appreciative. And I feel like when they weren't, I had the support I needed to walk away from that and, feel like, I did the best I could. I did a good job. And, I'm proud of that work.
Right.
And I think that that's what sets it apart, sets the receptionist apart and employee supremacy apart from a lot of similar places I've worked at, which is that I feel supported enough to walk away, even from a hard day, and feel like, you know what, that was pretty good. I'm really proud of my work. I was really supported for my work. And the conversations I had were challenging, but it was a fun challenge to solve, because the stakes are not, if I don't solve it in 3 minutes, my employment's in trouble.
Yeah, we're not saving lives here. And even if we were, I think there's still an element of, you can still bring an authentic personality, an authentic voice, one that is not pressured as much. Obviously, there's more pressure in saving lives. I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but
it's a good metaphor.
We may have blown some people's minds here earlier when you referenced the fact, Rain, that we're not bound. We don't ask you as a customer experience representative to hit metrics, hit a certain number of tickets closed a day. we encourage things like, how many happy face emojis can we get on the reviews after a ticket's been closed? Like those types of things. Those are the quote unquote measurements. How does that affect how you do your job? Like what effect does not having those trivial, I'll call them trivial because they are to me, those trivial, meaningless expectations that are sometimes put on support reps and customer experience reps to close a certain amount of tickets or do it faster or do it fast enough. How do you take and feel the expectations placed on you? Or what do you feel the expectations are of you in your role now?
Yeah, that's a good question. And this is really top of mind too, because we have, not long ago we hired on Lizanne and Raven, who are wonderful new members of the CX team, if you're watching this. But they're just great. And while we were training them, they asked about that sort of thing, and we were like,
not really.
we don't need them. Like you mentioned, the smiley faces. That's like as close as we get, and we consistently. I don't think I can remember a time where we've had like less than 95% like positive responses there, and it's not uncommon to go weeks where we get like 100 word. Right. And so there's not a need for it in that way. And I think the fact that there's not a need for it comes down to the fact that we're all empowered to be really successful in that, like, because there's no metrics that I have to, I'm not going into every conversation like scared because it's another chance to make a mistake.
Yeah.
I've definitely worked in places where I didn't like my job, not because I didn't like talking to people, but because every live chat that rolled in, every phone call that came in was just another opportunity for me to take a minute too long and be in trouble. Instead, can focus on like giving really good answers. I can focus on building rapport. I can focus on having a fun conversation with somebody. It feels so much better because I can actually build relationships this way. There's nothing better than someone coming into chat and being like, Rain, you helped me last time. You were so great. And that's not something that's happening if you're live chatting Walmart or something.
Yeah.
They don't have the time or the support to build a relationship with anyone. They don't have the employee supremacy that, enables them to be anything other than the rote machinery we've been talking about. Instead, I get to build real relationships. I get to have actual conversations with other human beings. I get to ask them, Happy Halloween. What did your company do?
Yeah.
I get to have real relationships with people, which is so much more fun. It's so much more authentic. And because of that, because I have the time, because I'm not scared of my metrics, I get to say, I could give you this pretty mediocre answer that would get you off my door and is technically correct. Or I could say, hey, can you give me 20 minutes, an hour? Can you give me some time to poke around and see if I can come up with something really innovative for you?
Yeah.
And that's so much more fun. Like nobody goes into CX because they don't like problem solving. The fact that I'm actually encouraged to solve problems instead of just trying to get people out of the door, that is so much fun and makes for such a rewarding experience every time I get to, solve a hard problem. A hard problem comes in and I'm like excited because that means I'm going to get to do something fun or ask someone else for really cool insights. Instead of at other places where if a problem came in that I didn't know the answer to, that was really scary.
Well, this was not intended, but this is how much this matters to us. Rain, you just used fun, authentic, and innovative in that answer. And those are like the 3 of the 6 core values written up on the wall behind me.
I promise I didn't think of that.
That was not planned at all, but I loved that answer. I wanna get real specific here.
Okay.
Yesterday in Slack, Hannah, our customer experience team lead, gave you some props. She gave you a shout out. I would love to hear, because I was saving it for this conversation because I didn't ask any questions. What happened there? She just said, hey, Rain handled this phone call amazingly, like a champ. And, the whole rest of the company was giving you kudos. But what happened there?
Yeah. It was a phone call that came in. And the funny thing is, it wasn't even a phone call that probably should have gone to CX. In similar places, when we've got phone calls like that, instead of being able to actually like talk to anyone, it was always like, I need to get this person off my plate as soon as possible so I can get to the people who need to be on my plate. And instead, we got to talk a little. They like told me a little bit about what their aims were, and I won't get super into it here. But we got to, talk a little. I got to, hi, this is Rain with the receptionist. How can I help you? And they told me, and then I was like, oh, I don't think I'm the right person to talk to, but let me get your information. And then I got their information, and we just had a good little rapport going. So we got to talk a little bit like human beings. The call wasn't a super long one. I think it probably lasted, I don't know, maybe like 8 minutes. But that was 8 minutes of building a relationship with someone who, in the past I would have spent 30 seconds on. And it was 8 minutes of giving someone a really, really good impression of like who we are and who I am specifically. And I say that not to be like who I am, to brag, but to say that, the next time that person calls in, if they, do need to talk to me next time, they'll know who I am. Yeah. They'll know, what the CX team represents, and that we're not just trying to get people out of the room as quickly as possible. And the reason Hannah shouted me out, because we talked about it a little bit after, I was like, oh, thank you. That wasn't that, special. Yeah. I didn't solve a particularly difficult problem or anything. She was like, no, you were just really professional, but also really kind and approachable. I think she used, I'm trying to remember the exact language she used. She said something to the effect of like, I could tell you were like having a good time.
I love that.
And I could tell the person I was talking to was having a good time. And that's, I want people to come away from conversations with me and the CX team and you and the sales team. And I'd want people to come away from conversations with us feeling like they talked to a person, but also like they talked to a person who's enjoying talking to them. I don't want anyone to walk away from a conversation feeling like I was stressed out speaking to them, because I'm not, frankly. Almost always when I'm talking to people here, I'm having a great time.
Yeah.
That was just like a really good example of, in a shareholder supremacy focused and in a company where I wasn't encouraged to be myself and be a person, I would not have spoken to that person for more than 30 seconds. I would have kicked him off the phone as soon as possible because, there were metrics I wasn't hitting every second I was on there. Right. Instead, I had a really fun conversation with someone and got to build a bit of a rapport and a bit of a relationship. So now, hopefully they, the next time they come in, they'll, we'll be talking to CX and they'll know who we are and they'll know that we're excited to talk to them.
So very cool. I love that story. That's the first time I've heard it. So awesome stuff. Thanks so much for sharing it. As we wrap things up, I guess I just want to I'll make a statement and you tell me whether it is true or not.
Okay.
It feels like everything, as I've listened to you, it feels like everything that you've set up to this point, the real meaning behind it or point of what you've said is you're in an employee supremacy model. You can make your role the role that you would imagine you would want to interact with if you were the customer coming from, and that you're not feeling like every person, no matter their background, their just everything that's different about each individual human, that they're not just being shoved into a process. That you, as Rain, the customer experience representative, get to make your job and how you accomplish your role each day how you would imagine it.
Yes.
Is that fair to say?
I would say yes. And not only do I get to make my role I get to be the kind of person I'd want to talk to.
Yeah.
I get to make customer service my own wheelhouse. Yeah. I get to have my own version of customer service that's the most fun for me. That's maybe like slightly different than Hannah's. And because we are able to make them really fulfilling for ourselves, we're able to make the process really fulfilling for the people we talk to also.
Oh, that's beautiful, Rain. Gosh, I just want to clip that part right there. Like that's it. So good. Thank you so much, Rain, for the work that you do. This is fantastic. Thanks for reaching out and saying, hey, I want to talk about this on the show, because this is what we want to do more of, is talk more with the folks on the front line who are living out that employee supremacy model and what it looks like. And like you said in the beginning, not just hear it from Andy, the CEO, but actually get the experience of other folks. So thanks so much for coming on and doing this.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Fabric Podcast. Our show is hosted by me, Michael Ashford, Director of Marketing here at The Receptionist, and produced by our creative manager, James Jordan. If you want to see a video version of the show, jump over to thereceptionist.com/fabric, where you can watch episodes of all of the content that we've put out on this podcast. You can see our bright smiling faces, and you can see what our studio looks like as well. If you'd like to give the Receptionist for iPad visitor management system a try in your office, jump over to thereceptionist.com/free trial and give us a test drive for 14 days with no credit card required. See what you think. Until next time, take care.